The infinity pool stretched toward the Pacific horizon like a liquid mirror. I watched my reflection ripple as I dipped my toes in the water, trying to look like I belonged among the designer swimwear and oversized sunglasses. You clearly can't afford to be here. Aunt Patricia's voice carried across the pool deck, pitched perfectly to sound like a private observation while ensuring everyone within 20 feet could hear. She reclined on a cushioned lounger, her resort robe artfully arranged, one manicured hand gesturing vaguely in my direction. I didn't turn around. I'd learned years ago that acknowledging Patricia only encouraged her. I mean, look at that swimsuit, my cousin Jennifer whispered, not quietly enough. Is that from Target? Giggling erupted from the cluster of loungers where my cousins had established their territory. 5 of them, arranged like a council of judgment, all wearing variations of the same entitled smirk I remembered from childhood. The reservation was probably a mistake. Aunt Patricia continued. She'd raised her voice slightly, warming to her audience. The family rate applies to actual family, not charity cases we haven't seen in a decade. I pulled my feet from the water and reached for my tablet, checking the afternoon schedule. The West Wing renovations were running 3 days ahead of schedule. The executive team from Henderson Technologies had confirmed their arrival time for next month's retreat. The restaurant manager needed approval on the new wine list. Are you even listening? Patricia's shadow fell across my screen. I looked up. She stood above me, backlit by the California sun, her expression a perfect mix of concern and contempt. Behind her, my cousins had arranged themselves in a semicircle, phones out, probably hoping for some drama to post about later. I'm working, I said quietly. Working, she laughed, that specific laugh she'd perfected at country club luncheons, designed to make the target feel small. Honey, this is a vacation, a very expensive vacation. I'm just concerned about how you're paying for it. The rooms here start at $800 a night. I'm aware. Are you? She settled onto the lounger next to mine, uninvited, because I'd hate for you to get in over your head financially. Again, wasn't there that whole bankruptcy thing a few years ago? My cousin Derek snorted. That internet business that tanked, right? I saved my work and set the tablet down carefully. The story about my failed business had become family legend, Patricia's favorite tale to trot out at gatherings. The truth was more complicated, but I'd stopped correcting people years ago. The resort probably has a payment plan, Jennifer offered with fake sympathy, for people who can't afford the full rate up front. A server appeared with a tray of cocktails. Patricia plucked a mojito without looking at him, her attention fixed on me like a cat watching a bird. I'm just saying, there are plenty of lovely, more affordable hotels nearby. That Hilton off the highway looked perfectly nice. More your speed. She sipped her drink. This place is really for people with a certain level of, well, success. The word hung in the air. Success, the thing I'd supposedly never achieved, at least not in ways that counted to Patricia's social circle. No husband, no children, no obvious markers of the life she valued. I like it here, I said evenly. Of course you do, who wouldn't? Patricia gestured expansively at the resort. The question is whether you can sustain it. I'd just hate to see you embarrass yourself when the bill comes. My phone buzzed. A text from David, my general manager. Inspector's here for final walkthrough. Need you. I typed back. Handle it. I trust your judgment. Always on that phone, Patricia observed. What is it you do again? Some kind of freelance thing. Consulting. Consulting. She repeated the word like it was foreign. How vague. That's what people say when they're between real jobs, isn't it? Jennifer and Derek laughed on cue. The other cousins pretended to be absorbed in their phones, but I could see them listening, watching, waiting for me to crack. I'd planned this family reunion carefully. 3 months ago, when my uncle had announced he was turning 70 and wanted everyone together, I'd suggested the Palomar Coast Resort. Casual, like it was just a nice place I'd heard about. No one had questioned it. No one knew I'd bought the property 6 years ago, right after Patricia's failed internet business story had started making the rounds. No one knew the consulting firm I'd mentioned was actually a tech company that had sold for $43 million. No one knew I'd spent the last 6 years quietly building a portfolio of luxury properties up and down the coast. I'd kept it all private, not out of shame, but because I'd learned something important. The less you told Patricia, the less ammunition she had. Miss Brooks, I looked up. David stood at the edge of the pool deck, tablet in hand, expression professionally neutral. He was good at that, at treating me like any other guest in public, saving the business discussions for private moments. Except this wasn't a private moment. "I'm so sorry to interrupt your family time," he said, and I saw the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. He was enjoying this. "But we need your final approval on the West Wing renovation contracts. The contractors are ready to start demolition on Monday." Patricia's mojito paused halfway to her lips. "Also," David continued, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet pool deck, "the Henderson Technologies executive team confirmed their retreat dates. All 43 rooms in the North Building for the full week. They're asking about the conference facilities you approved last month. The new audio-visual setup," I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Installed yesterday. The team is very pleased with your specifications." I was aware of the absolute silence that had fallen over my family's little section of the pool. Even Jennifer had lowered her phone. "And the restaurant manager needs your decision on the wine list expansion," David said. "The sommelier you hired has some concerns about the storage capacity. Tell Marcus I'll review his recommendations tonight. If he needs more cellar space, he's authorized to proceed with the expansion we discussed." "Perfect. Oh, and one more thing. Your accountant called about the quarterly tax meeting. Should I schedule it for next week after the reunion, or would you prefer to handle it remotely?" Patricia's mojito slipped from her fingers. The glass hit the marble deck with a sharp crack, ice and mint scattering across the perfect white stone. "Miss Brooks," Patricia said slowly. Her face had gone an interesting shade of pale, beneath her careful tan. "You're Miss Brooks?" I looked at her directly for the first time since she'd started her performance. "My name is on the deed." "Yes. The deed." Her voice came out strangled. "To the property." I gestured around at the resort, the infinity pool, the carefully landscaped grounds, the Mediterranean-style buildings terraced down toward the private beach. "I own the Palomar Coast Resort. I have for 6 years. Jennifer made a small sound, something between a gasp and a squeak. "The failed internet business you all enjoy discussing," I continued. "It was a hospitality management platform. I sold it to Marriott International in 2019, used the proceeds to start acquiring properties." Derek's mouth was actually hanging open. "I own 4 resorts now. This one, 2 in Northern California, 1 in Oregon. The consulting firm Patricia mentioned is actually a property management company. We handle luxury hospitality acquisitions and renovations." I paused. "We're doing quite well." David was definitely smiling now, though he was trying to hide it behind his tablet. "The family rate you mentioned." I looked at Patricia. "That was my gift to Uncle Thomas for his birthday. I covered everyone's rooms for the full week. You're all staying as my guests." "You covered..." Patricia seemed unable to form complete sentences. "The rooms, the meals, resort amenities, everything. I wanted Uncle Thomas to have a nice celebration without worrying about costs." I stood, gathering my tablet and phone. "I'm glad you're all enjoying the property. The infinity pool was my idea, actually. I thought the Pacific view would be worth the engineering challenges." The cousins had gone completely still, their phones forgotten, their casual cruelty frozen on their faces. "I need to handle some business," I said to David. "Can you have the kitchen send lunch to my office?" "The usual." "Of course, Miss Brooks." He gestured toward the main building. "I'll walk with you. We should discuss the October bookings." I started toward the resort, then paused. "Oh, Patricia, your room service charges are getting quite high." "It's fine, you're my guest. But the premium champagne runs about $400 a bottle, just so you're aware of what you're drinking." I didn't wait for a response. David and I walked in silence until we reached the executive wing, the section of the resort guests never saw, where the real work happened. My office overlooked the same Pacific view as the pool, but from 3 stories up, with floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of quiet that only came from solid construction and good design. "You enjoyed that," I said as David closed the door. "Immensely. I've been waiting 6 years to watch you tell them." He set his tablet down. "Though I'm curious why you waited this long." I sank into my desk chair and pulled up the renovation plans. "Because it wasn't about them knowing, it was about me knowing." Cryptic. I needed to prove something to myself, not to Patricia. I studied the blueprints for the West Wing. When she called my business a failure, part of me believed her. I needed time to build something real before I was ready to let anyone see it. And now I run 4 successful properties, employ 300 people, and I'm very good at what I do. I looked up at him. Now I don't need Patricia's approval. I just need her to stop spreading lies about my life. David nodded slowly. Fair enough. Though I suspect watching her face when I called you Miss Brooks will sustain me through the next several budget meetings. I laughed. It felt good. How did the inspection actually go? Perfect. We're clear to start demolition Monday. The new suites should be ready by April. He pulled up photos on his tablet. The designer sent over tile samples for your bathroom selections. We spent the next hour on actual work, the kind of detailed, complicated, satisfying work that had nothing to do with family drama and everything to do with building something beautiful and functional. This was what I loved. The problem solving, the creativity, the challenge of taking a space and making it better. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. Uncle Thomas. Can we talk? Private. I found him in the resort library, a quiet room off the main lobby that most guests never discovered. He sat in one of the leather armchairs, looking older than I remembered, holding a whiskey I recognized from our top shelf. Your aunt is in our room having what she calls a moment, he said without preamble. I sat across from him. I'm sorry if I embarrassed her. Don't apologize. Patricia's spent 30 years embarrassing people. It's about time someone returned the favor. He sipped his whiskey. Though I wish you'd told me. I've been talking to you like you were broke for 6 years. You've been talking to me like I was family, I corrected gently, which is all I wanted. He was quiet for a moment. The bankruptcy story. She made that up, didn't she? Not entirely. I did have some rough months after college, but I recovered, built the business, sold it. I shrugged. Patricia needed a narrative where I was failing. She edited the facts to fit, and you let her. I was busy actually succeeding. I didn't have time to argue about her version of my life. Uncle Thomas laughed, a sound like wind through dry leaves. You're more like your mother than I realized. She never cared much what people thought either. We sat in comfortable silence. Outside the windows, guests wandered the grounds, enjoying amenities I'd carefully designed. The sunset was painting the sky orange and pink, the kind of view I'd bought this property for. I'm proud of you, Uncle Thomas said finally. Not because you're rich or successful, because you're kind. You could have turned us all away, especially after how Patricia's treated you. Instead, you gave me a birthday present. I'll never forget. You're welcome. But maybe next year, warn me first. I nearly had a heart attack when David called you Miss Brooks and Patricia dropped her drink. I smiled. I'll consider it. Dinner that night was subdued. My family gathered in the resort's main restaurant, the one with the Michelin-starred chef I'd stolen from a competitor in Napa, and everyone was suddenly very polite. Patricia said almost nothing, picking at her $70 entree like it personally offended her. Jennifer apologized 3 times for the Target swimsuit comment. Derek asked awkward questions about property acquisition strategies. The other cousins mostly stared at their plates. Uncle Thomas, bless him, told stories about my mother, his sister, who died when I was 19. Stories about her stubbornness, her business sense, her refusal to apologize for success. She started 3 companies before she was 30, he said, raising his wine glass. All while everyone told her she should settle down and have more kids. She just smiled and worked harder. To absent family, I said quietly, touching my glass to his, and to present family, he added, who make us proud in unexpected ways. After dinner, I walked the grounds alone, checking details the guests never noticed. A loose tile near the yoga pavilion, some landscaping that needed trimming, a light fixture that flickered in the outdoor dining area. I made notes on my phone. Monday I'd give the list to David. By Wednesday everything would be fixed. That's what ownership meant, not the money or the status, but the responsibility, the constant attention to detail, the work of making something excellent, and keeping it that way. Patricia found me near the beach path around 10 p.m. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. You don't. I do. I was cruel. Intentionally cruel. I looked at her. Really looked. She was 57, carefully maintained, deeply unhappy in ways she'd probably never admit. Success to Patricia meant the right husband, the right house, the right social circle. I'd never fit her definition, so she'd decided I was failing. You were protecting yourself, I said finally. You needed me to be the cautionary tale. The reminder of what happens when you don't follow the rules. That's very generous. It's just true. You're not happy, Patricia. You haven't been for years. It's easier to focus on other people's failures than examine your own life. She flinched. For a moment, I thought she might argue. Then her shoulders sagged. I hate that you're right, she said quietly. I know. We stood in silence, listening to the waves. The resort lights glowed warm behind us, reflected in the dark water. For what it's worth, Patricia said, this place is beautiful. You should be very proud. I am. She turned to go, then paused. The West Wing renovations. What are you building? Family suites, bigger rooms, better for groups traveling together. I thought there was a market for luxury multi-generational travel. Patricia smiled, a real smile, sad and genuine. Your mother would have loved that. After she left, I sat on the beach for another hour, my feet in the cool sand, watching the moon paint silver across the Pacific. I thought about my mother, who taught me that success was something you defined for yourself, about Uncle Thomas, who'd loved me without conditions, about Patricia, trapped in someone else's definition of a worthy life. And I thought about the business I'd built, not just the properties and the profits, but the spaces I'd created. Places where families could gather, where memories were made, where people felt cared for and safe. This was what I'd wanted to prove, not that I was rich, but that I was capable, that I could build something meaningful with my own hands and mind. That Patricia's opinions, while painful, were just opinions. The resort stood behind me, every light placed exactly where I'd specified, every detail chosen with care. Mine, built from vision, and work and stubborn refusal to accept someone else's story about my life. Tomorrow my family would check out, they'd return to their regular lives, and I'd return to mine. We might stay in better touch, or we might drift apart again. It didn't matter as much as it once had. I had work to do, renovations to approve, staff to manage, guests to welcome, a business to run, properties to improve, standards to maintain. And somewhere in Northern California, there was a historic hotel coming on the market, a property with good bones, and unlimited potential, just waiting for someone to see what it could become. I pulled out my phone and emailed my accountant. Some opportunities were too good to wait for morning. The waves kept rolling in, steady and eternal, as I started planning my next acquisition.